Coming up on Network Africa. Fire breaks out at the University of Nairobi in Kenya, destroying infrastructure and reducing property to rubble. Unrest as protests greet swearing in of new Mozambican President Daniel Chapo. And authorities and volunteers wrap up recovery and rescue mission at South Africa gold mine in Stilfontein. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers in Lagos. We begin in Kenya, where a fire has broken out at the University of Nairobi's main campus in the capital. The fire caused huge damage to a section of the famous Mahatma Gandhi wing, an iconic building at the university located near the old administration building. It's believed to have started on the second floor before spreading to other areas. The fire appeared to be contained late on Wednesday, only to restart this morning. No injuries were recorded, but property worth an unknown value was reduced to ashes. Let's get more on that fire disaster, and joining us to talk about it is Kenyan journalist Cyrus Ombati, who's in Nairobi for us. Hello, Cyrus.
Good afternoon. How are you? Good.
Right. So can you tell us anything more about that fire?
Well, the fire broke out at around midnight last night before it started spreading to other areas. They are saying that the fire broke out from a restaurant which is within the building which was affected. Mind you, this building is historic, as you put it very clearly from the beginning, because it's one of the oldest structures at the University of Nairobi. The University of Nairobi is the oldest university in the country, and is the premier university in the region, to say the least.
And authorities have started an investigation. Are there any clues yet about how the fire started? I know you said began in a restaurant, but what led to it?
That's what we understand, that experts are now been combing the area to understand what was the cause, because they are saying it started from the kitchen, and we suspect it to be an electric fault, but then it's something that we have to wait and see what comes next, because the police have been combing the area since morning, trying to establish whether the fuses who can indicate anything to do with the electric fault. And then it can also be arson, because the students are supposed to start exams next week, and you understand that sometimes some students can be cheeky, but the location of the fire itself is isolated, it's far away from the restaurant, the hostels for the students, so we believe it's electric or something of the sort.
And what about, the building itself? I know that when incidents like this happen, the building is set to be, under investigation to know if it's still safe, habitable, that building and adjoining buildings. Are there any investigations as to the safety of surrounding buildings that might have been affected by the fire? And, is there any activity going to be going on anywhere near there anytime soon?
I mean, the building houses administration blocks of the university, and it has a restaurant, it has a hall, a very historic hall, it's called Taifa Hall. So all these structures or offices were affected. Remember the smoke which was flowing from the building, it went up to the upper floors, which are around 4 floors up. So the whole building has been evacuated, and there's nothing going on there until the investigation are completed. And engineers have come to kind of check whether it's structurally kind of sound to hold or to continue being an office or holding more officers, as it has been in the past. So it's something that we have to wait and hear or see whether these experts are going to say that it's safe for people to go back there to occupy the same.
Right. And what about the students? You did say that, exams were about to start as soon as next week. And if an administrative building has, been destroyed by fire, that means a lot of documentation has been destroyed. What's going to happen to the students and, the examinations and the future, really?
Well, you see, They're saying that some of the documents that are affected were stored online. So if they can be able to restore whatever was destroyed in the fire, because the affected area, it was more of a smoke which affected, but we understand that some records here were damaged, but they're able to restore them. That's what they have told us this afternoon. So we hope that it's going to be restored and people can continue their lives as normal in the university.
Right, and from some of your comments, I understand it's the oldest university in the country, and the building affected is an iconic building. Has this kind of thing happened before? What's going to happen now? I mean, is any restoration or rebuilding going to take place?
That's what the acting vice chancellor said, that once the engineers are through with their work, they can be able to see what they can restore the structure itself, because as you put very clearly, it's named after the Indian, I don't know what it's called or something, the Indian Mahatma Gandhi. It's iconic, it's historic, the way it was even built. It has been maintained and sustained by this foundation of the Mahatma Gandhi. So they have to make sure that it regains its kind of historical feature or the way it used to look. And that will take time, and of course it has cost implications here and there.
Right, Nigel. Cyrus, thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Elsewhere, the Bangladeshi Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Mohammed Nazmul Hassan, has paid a visit to South Sudan. One duty he performed was the honoring of personnel, those of the Bangladeshi Force Marine Unit who have served in the 10-year peacekeeping contribution in the country. The Bangladeshi Force Marine Unit is on the front lines of the United Nations mission in South Sudan's efforts to ensure freedom of movement along the River Nile and reach communities in need in remote locations where roads are impassable. The 200-strong peacekeeping unit with its 12 boats also protects convoys of barges carrying food, fuel, and other vital supplies on the 1,876-kilometer riverine journey from the capital Juba to the mission's northernmost bases.
The specific task that the BAN FMU, the Force Maritime Unit, performs is particularly providing logistics to the forces deployed in UNMISS, and also to ensure that the civilian population remains in peace. So the very important task carried out by the naval contingents here are taken very seriously by Bangladesh Navy, and we try to select the best of officers and sailors for this purpose. For the last 10 years, we have been performing this duty with pride and dignity, and we hope that with our commitment and dedication, we'll be able to continue to the cause of peace in South Sudan, and peace will continue to prevail, inshallah.
This is a country which is dramatically affected by its topography and by its weather, which seeks frequently to hold our peacekeepers hostage in their camps because of rain and mud, and it's always been our intention to be as agile and as mobile as possible, but for that we need roads to travel on, and for roads to travel on we are deeply indebted to the work of the Bangladeshi engineers, and particularly its engineering unit, which have served to keep those roads free for transport. We have come to depend on a continuous level of support from the Bangladeshi people in the form of the peacekeepers to this.
Well, earlier in the week, we brought you a story out of Zimbabwe on a bill to prolong President Emerson Mnangagwa's current mandate. The bill, which could be tabled before Parliament in a matter of days, has already won the opposition's backing, with an opposition leader going as far as to say he would not block the bid when officially presented by the government. These changes, if adopted, would delay elections until 2030. President Mnangagwa's current mandate expires in 2028. Zimbabwe's constitution limits the presidential office to 2 5-year terms, and Mr. Mnangagwa is serving his second and final term. Let's get more of this. Joining us to discuss is Zimbabwean journalist Nigel Yamutumbu. Nigel is speaking virtually from Harare. Hello, Nigel. Great to see you again today.
Yes, thanks, and compliments of the new season
right.
to the viewers.
Wow, politics in Zimbabwe. Why is the opposition seemingly cozying up to the president?
Well, to be fair, those that are posturing as opposition leaders in Zimbabwe at the moment, to be fair to the audience and for history to record accurately the events that are unfolding in Zimbabwe, those that are posturing as opposition leaders are in actual fact not necessarily opposition. They are state-enabled opposition. I think the events that happened post the 2023 elections are quite telling in that the Speaker of Parliament, working in codes with one faction of the opposition, then created an alternative that bends to the whims of the ruling party. And that is coming, it's becoming more evident as we noticed with the recent event at President Mnangagwa's pre-kept farm in the Midlands province of Zimbabwe, where it is now evident that they've just been working together, and they've been working together with a view to extend President Mnangagwa's term in office, and unfortunately it would be unconstitutionally so.
Right, and how do the people feel about this bill?
Well, there are various schools of thoughts at the particular moment, and I think one thing that we should be categorical about is that it is free expression, really. I think it's one thing for one to dream of having a life president, for other smaller political parties aligned with the ruling party that are beginning to come up with new schools of thought around how presidential term limits, a phantom of Western democracy, and so forth. But you can really tell, in essence, the view that should subside and the view that should carry the day is to fundamentally answer the question of whether Zimbabwe is a constitutional democracy which really bends to the whims of the ethos and principles of the essential doctrine of a constitutional democracy, or the basic doctrine of a constitutional democracy thereof. So, yes, Wallace, there are some ruling party supporters that are composing songs, that are merrymaking, and are really amplifying the cause for the president to stay on in power. Those calls are that at this particular stage just calls. In reality and constitutionally, it is almost impossible to extend the presidential terms if we are to abide and if Zimbabwe is really to stand as a constitutional democracy.
And help us understand what's contained in this bill.
So far, the Justice Minister is the one that has told state media that the government is ready for making these constitutional amendments. They are yet to actually table the amendments in Parliament, because for the amendment or the presidential term limits to succeed, they have to go past at least two hurdles. Two referendums to come to the people twice. One to say, do the people of Zimbabwe want presidential term limits to be abolished or to be extended from the current 2 to more limits, to more periods. That is one. And then secondly, because currently, even if the people of Zimbabwe vote that they want a presidential term limits to be extended, they ought to also amend the provision that restricts the incumbent, in this case, President Mnangagwa, to benefit from such an amendment to the Constitution. So there would be a second Constitution, which would definitely now be an individual constitutional amendment to then say, do we want President Mnangagwa to continue as president, being the second referendum? And for President Mnangagwa to pass those two hurdles, I would make him one of the most popular politicians in the world, right, which I doubt carries such support at the moment.
All right, thank you, Nigel. I must thank you for your time and for explaining that situation further for us.
Pleasure.
Welcome back to the program. Hundreds of the Mozambican opposition took to the streets in protest as the new president, Daniel Chapo, was inaugurated. Daniel Chapo took his oath as the country's fifth president before about 2,500 people who endured intense heat in front of a city hall in the capital, Maputo. Opposition supporters protested peacefully a few meters away after security forces wielding guns and batons blocked them from getting to the venue. This is unlike the protests following the disputed elections, which turned deadly. Security forces sealed several roads and kept a heavy presence in other parts of Maputo as well. President Chapo, a 48-year-old law graduate, has acknowledged the need to end the instability rocking the country. And concerns are mounting over the stability of South Africa's government of national unity as tensions between the ANC and the DA continues to rise. Basic Education Minister Siviwe recently declined to attend President Cyril Ramaphosa's signing of the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, legislation designed to ensure equal access to quality education for all children. Meanwhile, the Democratic Alliance has also voiced strong opposition to the proposed National Health Insurance Plan, which aims to establish universal health care coverage across the country. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Zemoza, has more.
That the government of national unity is here to stay. We recommit ourselves to the government of national unity, and we are going to work to implement the statement of intent and everything that is set out in there. And that includes improving our economy, growing our economy, creating jobs.
However, Cosmo City resident and political analyst Walter Mashilo has expressed a contrasting perspective.
The only thing that I would say that the GNU has brought, which is positive, is that it has brought the stability and it has reduced the anxiety. Remember, after the elections, everyone was anxious. People didn't know what to expect. Even the investors didn't know what to expect because of the outcomes of the elections. But then since the government of national unity has been, the so-called government of national unity has been put together, so I would say that the country has been very stable, the mood has been very stable. Beyond that, I don't see anything magical that is going to come out of this government.
To gain deeper insights, I spoke with political analyst Dr. Ongama Mdimka. I began by asking him to evaluate the performance of the GNU so far.
The government of national unity in South Africa can be said to have had a rocky but stable start. The way in which to measure that is, one, what it has done to national political stability. Secondly, what has it done to each of the major political players around the table in it. I am of the view that both measured from a national stability point of view to also the internal stability of the parties, the general feeling is that we are on a more secure path.
Dr. Mdimka believes the establishment of the GNU marks a significant and lasting shift in South Africa's political landscape, emphasizing that now is the time for collaborative politics to take center stage.
Unlike in 1994, though, it's not going to only take an elite settlement in order to get South Africa on a more stable trajectory that can yield growth. We need to have both of these major arch rivals in the GNU, along with all the other ones who are very important, to agree that it's time for collaborative politics in South Africa.
There's a broad agreement among party leaders that the government of national unity has made a promising start, with everyone playing a constructive role. However, it seems the true impact of the GNU is yet to be felt by ordinary citizens. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
Still in South Africa, at least 78 bodies have been pulled from an illegal gold mine in the country where police cut off food and water supplies for months in what trade unions called a horrific crackdown on desperate people trying to eke out a living. A total of 246 survivors, some of them emaciated and disorientated, have been brought to the surface and immediately arrested for illegal mining and immigration. Volunteers who went down to the mine, located 2 kilometers underground near Stilfontein, southwest of Johannesburg, reported that they did not see any others in the underground tunnels. Rescuers are wrapping up the operation today, making sure all bodies and survivors have been recovered. Initially, there were fears that dozens or even hundreds more men could still be trapped. Most of the miners at the Stilfontein were from Mozambique, though some also came from Zimbabwe and Lesotho. Only 21 of them were South Africans. Senegal is going ahead with plans to change various landmarks and street names in a move it calls decolonization of the country. Names of prominent figures from France will be dropped in favor of names depicting Senegalese culture and identity. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye made this decision in December to replace colonial-era street names in order to better celebrate the history and culture of Senegal. The decision taken by the government has garnered widespread support from the public, as many view it as an opportunity to teach the younger generation about Senegal's heritage. Beyond renaming streets, the initiative is expected to support the growth of Senegal's cultural and creative industries, as well as attract tourists. Here in Nigeria, the Lagos State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, in a cleanup exercise, has asked traders occupying Sele Ijesha drainage channels within the Lagos metropolis, to vacate the space or face the wrath of the law. Mr. Wahab, who was speaking during an enforcement exercise in the area, says the people have been served several notices but turned a deaf ear.
The Lagos State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, is out for an environment exercise in the Sele area of Oshodi-Apapa Expressway. His first port of call is System 6C drainage channel, blocked with refuse, which makes it difficult to discharge water effectively. Sele bus stop is a busy area where individuals engage in all kinds of activities to earn their daily bread. The commissioner says they must all vacate the area.
Sometime last year, we had several complaints of illegal activities going on the pedestrian bridge and under the bridge. Criminal activities were going on. It goes beyond environmental and safety issues now. And then their waste were now being dropped into the major canal. Nobody say you can't have your markets. But markets are for designated places and areas. But when you have your market built, or your shanties or your stores built on the drainage itself, or you have to go and construct shanties on a part of a channel like System 6, you leave us with no other option
Sudan to tell them to remove everything. They were served notices since last week, I believe. So I believe they will do an engagement with them in the next few hours. And hopefully by weekend they should be able to move.
Oduashimo System 6, servicing Sele area and its environs, has also been misused by the people and needs to be rehabilitated.
It's not enough to clear and cut the drainage part and clean it up. It's about the human activities going on around it. If you have a market, a full-fledged market like you just saw now, illegally being operated around here, and they dump their waste in that. So even if you clean it up every day, and they go ahead and still behave badly every day, that's what you see.
The Lagos Ministry of Environment and Water Resources says the traders occupying the Sele drainage channel setback have been served a notice a week before now, and government will ensure they vacate the area for proper cleanup of the environment.
Libyans gathered in the streets of Misrata to celebrate the announcement of the ceasefire deal in Gaza. They expressed joy for what they describe as an honorable victory. The complex ceasefire accord between Israel and militant group Hamas, which controls Gaza, emerged on Wednesday after months of mediation by Qatar, Egypt, and the United States, and 15 months of bloodshed that devastated the coastal territory and inflamed the Middle East. If successful, the ceasefire will halt fighting that has raised much of heavily urbanized Gaza, killed over 46,000 people, and displaced most of the tiny enclave's pre-war population of 2.3 million. And that's our program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joker Rogers.